Let's see. We are going to start. And let's go into, okay, your partner advances holding a wooden sword. Absolutely do not fix your gaze on him. In Aikido, we do not focus on such points as the eyes or the hands. Your mind, not your senses, is the key to the evaluation of an attack. This acute awareness of mind is called Nenpi Kanon Riki, marvelous redeeming power of compassionate thoughts. And he quotes that it's from the Lotus Sutra. To understand Aikido, first draw a circle. When a circle is made, it creates a sphere of influence. If you bring an opponent within this sphere of influence, you can throw him with just the touch of a finger. However, it takes a minimum of 10 years of serious training to accomplish a feat. Let's take a giant leap in our training and make this happen. Aikido techniques consist of circular blending movements. Feel the technical movements throughout your body and keep your spirit circular. The circle is completely empty. The emptiness from which all things emerge. Completely empty means perfectly free. From the center of that complete emptiness, the universe emerged. This is Iku Musubi, generating creative force, the parent of all things. So he's touching a variety of different tracks, but the tracks are interconnected. Okay, so if it doesn't make sense to you, it's almost like reading science. You know, read a casual novel, whatever, but all of a sudden you're, you know, when I was taking genetics, you know, upper division at UC Santa Cruz, it's like, okay, or physics, go, okay, so in that way, it's not quite what you call just casual. Although, you know, it touches a variety of topics. And one of the first things is the whole concept of what he might have meant by mind. When he says, you know, somebody holds a wooden sword, you know, for example, if I do this, all the attention goes here. Okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And he's just saying, to some degree, okay, now he's saying your mind, not your senses. But then again, and we would have to go back to the original Japanese, where he says, cleanse the six senses, and the sixth one is what he calls mind. So sometimes, you know, you just got to read it and, you know, within the context of the other things. But for example, if I'm here, this takes all the attention, doesn't it? But if the mind is calm, you know, there's more here than somebody threatening you with something. Okay, so what mind represents is either another sense, in other words, or calm the other senses. He says, don't look at the eyes, because when you're looking at the eyes, you know, you can get hypnotized. All right. So one of the things, you know, for example, is you see You can fix on anything, but your focus is wide angle. Okay? So when that happens, the mind is freer. And some of the stuff he's talking about, like there's a circle, circle is part of a space of influence, okay? But the circle also represents harmony, okay, among other things. So, he says if you can draw them into your circle, then you can throw them with the touch of one finger, okay? And he says it takes minimum of 10 years, okay? Let me tell you that may take. Terry Dobson once told me about Irimi Nagra, it's 20 years. He looked at me once and says, Jack, I think it's more like 50. I said, yeah, I think so. So when he's saying 10 years, 10 of his years might be 100 of our years. You just never know. But that part of it is interesting. A circle, one thing we've been working lately, move like a beam of light, move like a beam of light. Fly like lightning, strike like thunder. And then it goes into move in circles around a stable center. Okay? And one of the things earlier is kind of like, okay, if you don't gaze or fix your gaze on the attacker with a sword. And then he really talks later about the circle. The center of the circle is emptiness. And that part of it is, obviously, there's also one of his major archetypes, the center circle, which we're going to do a little work with later. But one of the possibilities, for example, is any situation, center circle. As the center and the circle become equal, in other words, the circle's too big, the center is a little too unwieldy. Conversely, the center is too fixed and the circle is too limited. But as you get the balance of center, circle, circle, center, center, circle, then the center leads to an emptiness, a type of freedom. Okay? And, the construct of the circle, when you get that balance, is your sphere of, he uses the term sphere of influence, but I think the whole thing is you're creating a harmony. And so, ideally, this is ideal, an attacker comes and we draw them into the circle, right? And then from that circle, harmony is created. And also understanding the center circle to where things empty, you see. There's a kind of a fluidity. Now there's a variety of different circles or different tracks. And you may need, this circle, okay, we're going to, change tracks of that circle. So again, the actual sense of what he calls the mind in some cases. Again, you just have to ask some people, that maybe have studied the Japanese, because mind is a very tricky word. It's a very tricky word. Okay, because I get mental around mind. But mind is more like, when he's talking about sensing, okay, and about being able to focus without fixing, okay? So I thought what we do is today we'll go into the other room. And on Saturday, we started to work some things around what we're talking about now. So we're going to head in there. By the way, I like to use, so it's inside, a lot of the things right now are inside, right? And this turns more freely. I might take it in there and start out with it, but almost any length. I think on Saturday, we actually used a long staff, which I brought, a bow length. In Shingu, Osensei used a bow. Other places he used a jo, and who knows why. But in Shingu, it was bojutsu. Okay. Aiki bojutsu. It's longer. And the movements were a little bit more connected to the spear. Okay, so let's move. And we'll position. And we'll adjust. And see, I have this. Almost any length. Almost any length. Okay, almost any length. So right now, I'm just kind of moving and warming up. All right. But there are various forms. And one of the major ones would be the striking form. All right. But what we're doing, in fact, I will shift. And again, this is shorter for me. You still have to watch it. So be careful where you are. If you're outside, that's good. See how the body rotates? And here, we're forming a kind of triangle. But you see the circle within that triangle. The cut is right down the middle, but when you rotate, so now you're forming the triangle. Here, there are very strict sword, you hold this way, for example, the wrists are exposed. You hold this way, you see the sword protects the lead wrist. The back wrist is harder to get. But if you go like this, that's the first target. I mean, you get your wrist cut, hit. You're not going to be much of a swordsman or swordswoman. Okay, but the cut itself, the strike itself. Now there, for example, is a little low, so the head is exposed, but we're working. And then we can switch sides. So as I'm, okay. Okay, we're doing a right side and a left side and a right side and a left side. Okay, gotta watch out for that lamp up there. Okay, I'd like you to just do a couple of basic cuts. Okay, right, left, right, left. Yeah. Anybody with a question on that? In other words, we're rotating body as we're cutting more. So in other words, you could say, is this a yoko man or is this a showman? It's kind of both. Right. Okay. Anybody with a question on right side, left side? Yes.
So the connection to what you were saying earlier, it seems like yes. The circle center part is that one end travels in kind of an arc and one end is in the center near my hara. Is that am I reading that correctly?
Well, the hands are closer to the center, so you could say the hands are part of the center. Ultimately, the center is here, okay? Now, what we're going to do, because you referenced the center, the center, okay, is one of Osensei's major patterns, archetypes was center circle. Now, we just read some stuff where he was saying, that the circle is empty, okay? But on the other hand, there's a center circle. He references it all the time, okay? So what I'd like us to do is we're going to go right side, left side as before. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of double up. This is a right side cut with a center circle, and the left side cut, the center circle right, center circle left. I just want you to try a couple. Okay, we did this pattern, I guess it was 2 days ago in the park. Right side, center circle, left side, center circle. Right side, center circle, left side, center circle. And just get the flavor of it. Just see who. Okay, now, just so I center myself a little bit better, all right? And maybe what I'll do, I'll move this lamp back a bit, and I'll move this a little further back. So I get, because I'm getting a little close to that lamp. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this, so yeah. And then I'll be able to get a full body right about here, which is where I want, okay? Now, the center circle, what is it? Okay, it's a construct, it's a space. Now, for example, I'm just doing right side, left side, but all of a sudden, I'm going right side, center circle, left side, center circle. Now, I'm getting the alignment of the triangle a little better. Ooh, without, okay, I gotta do it, okay? The other thing that sort of starts to happen, right side, center circle, left side, center circle, the base starts to fill in. Right side, center circle, left side, center circle. I get a better sense of the whole thing. In other words, it's not just out there, but it starts. In that center circle balance, boom, the water gathering, forming a wave. So there's a lot of stuff that happens for me when I just don't go right, left. I go right side, center circle, left side, center circle. So I'd like everybody to swing a couple more, adding center circle to right side, center circle to left side. Okay? Okay, let's check in a bit. Anybody with any observations? We did some pretty good stuff on Saturday. In other words, I'm just doing a form, trying to figure the form out, but all of a sudden there's a center circle to the right side and a center circle to the left side. Anybody with a comment on that when we add the center circle right, center circle left? Anybody?
I'm still a little vague on what the physical difference is. I mean, I'm focusing on it mentally, on the center circle thing, but the physical seems like the same movement, just with a different attitude.
Yeah, okay, the center circle is, if you're thinking about what the center circle is, you're not kind of getting the nutrients of it. Okay, and this is tricky. Okay, I'm thinking about the center circle, trying to do that. Now, the center circle, wherever I go, there's a potential center circle. Most of the time, my attention is out there, out there, out there. But Osensei might say the center and the circle are part of a universal design. Therefore, it's an archetype. And so, there's a sense where, okay, from there, boom, it's a little different. I'm doing the cut, learning more about the cut. There's the center circle. I notice, for example, the back leg feels longer, but on the other hand, all right, and that I can focus on that and yet retain a focus on the whole room. When I start to invoke the center circle, boom, invoke the center circle. Okay, so a certain amount of confusion is the start of it. But then as you start to move, what's the effect of center circle there? Where is the center? Where is the circle? It's an archetype. It's a pattern of energy that's universal, and one that Osensei really, really used a lot. And today he was referencing circle and said, has no, the center of it is empty. We're going to go into that a little bit. Okay? All right? That's our next step. But I just want everybody to kind of try that. Anybody else with a question or observation on the center circle? Initially, it may give you one more thing to get mental about, so it may throw you off. But that's the stage of development. Okay? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. All right. Well, we'll try to. So center circle right, center circle left. All right. Center circle right, center circle left. All right. So you're creating a space of harmony around which, boom, that cut. Right side, left side. We could do one, in sword, for example, we generally do one side, okay? All right, but here we're going, boom, 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 boom. So I can make the strike longer, or I can slide back a little bit. But I'm really trying to get the balance of right, the balance of left, using the center circle right and the center circle left. Okay? Swing a couple more times. This is maybe a little vague. Center circle. Center circle. Center circle right, center circle left. Okay, let's check in a little bit. Any more, the center circle, what is it? Osensei talked about heaven, earth, fire, water. He talked about kami. He talked about a lot of things. But the center circle, it's not that you, well, for want of a better term, when you start to kind of create the space of center circle around you, then the right and the left, there's a kind of a change an atmosphere around it. Okay, for example, boom, for me, those movements flow a bit more. Yeah, I could try to make it, yeah, I can fly, it's a little better. Center circle, boom, center circle, boom. So what is somebody, for example, that, they're really there, they've been training for years. Well, maybe they just got better technically, or maybe they're working a center circle, whether they are conscious of it or not. Okay? Okay, so anybody with a flavor, right side center circle, left side center circle? Anybody? Bonnie?
Sensei, I have a question.
Sure.
When I'm doing this, I'm going slow so I can try to let the blade move itself, I guess, is a way to put it. But as I'm doing this, I feel the blade going down as if a Yoko Minuchi. But at the end, when I feel maybe center circle, it almost seems like the blade is straightening out as if it finished a showman strike, or as if, let's say, it sliced through a body and now it's through the body. Is the center circle that rebalancing afterwards or during it?
The center circle is more a space. Okay. Now, for example, if we were to shift, okay. Now, I'm using this because I do some Tai Chi sword, but let's just say that it's a Japanese blade. Okay. In other words, a Japanese blade, this would cut and this would be curved. Okay. Now, in Aikido, we're taught to go this way, but I've done some sword cutting, and they don't call it yokomen uchi. They call it kesa. Okay, and they take straw and they soak it so that it's got the consistency of human flesh, and they put it there like it's a post of straw. Okay, and if you go like this, it bounces off. So, what you're doing is you are cutting, the angle of the blade stays showman, but the body rotates. If you go this way, it bounces off. Okay. The feeling of it is freedom. If you see an object out there, but boom. The actual cutting motion is different than delivering a strike. Okay? And so the feeling of a center circle, there is a closing motion. Sadaharu describes, I hit one home run in a park setting once. It was a Little League park. And a friend and I were just pitching to each other, trying to hit. We were more interested in throwing different pitches than we were in hitting, but he kind of threw high and inside, down went like that, and the ball sailed out. And it was weightless. It was absolutely weightless. I didn't feel any. And then, of course, I would swing harder to try to duplicate it, and I could never hit another one out. But he just went this way, and I went that way, and it was light and fluid, and the ball soared out. And for years, it was a great mystery. At some point, I stopped doing it because, it was fun. But O says, that when you're here, you don't twist, or when the ball hits, boom, the ball is soaring out, you add that follow through. And when you miss, you feel the weight of the ball hitting the bat. But when you hit it, boom, there's an almost weightless feeling. Okay. Now, there's a difference between striking and cutting. And there's a difference between striking and piercing. Okay? And so, you know, it's, I would say, if, for example, the center circle right at the end, the others is a larger center circle, but the contact point is a center circle. What else did Osensei say? He said the center has, the circle has, is empty, okay? But it does have a center. So the center circle may lead you to that emptiness. And emptiness is weightless. So, you know, whether you're hitting a baseball or cutting through some straw that's been soaked, you know, in water, which makes it harder to cut. This was interesting because I would pick up a live sword and you just go like whack and it bounces off. We tend to think, okay, I'm going to do a yoko menuchi. Boom, it bounces off. And then when you kind of go, this is a straight showman strike. Now we're going to make it a kissa by rotating the body. And my Aikido teacher, she said, great cut. And it felt like the home run I hit. There was no weight at all. So at that point, boom. In fact, it feels empty. Okay? Yeah. That's why it's difficult sometimes to train because you go like this, boom. Okay? Now, if I'm, for example, swinging, boom, boom. See, I don't do that. Boom. What does that feel like? Let me, if I'm doing it right, boom, feels like thunder. Boom, boom. How much does thunder weigh? Well, a lightning strike or a thunder strike, you're going to get hit with a certain poundage of force, but it's all energy, right? And so if you were to ask the thunder how much it weighs, it would probably tell you, huh? Boom. So, you know, strike like thunder, boom, boom. That's speed, boom. Fly like lightning, strike like thunder. And for those things to occur, there's a center circle space. Center circle space, boom. What's different than me going, I'm trying to figure it out and do it. Center circle space, boom. Or center circle space, boom. Or center circle space, move like a beam of light. The center circle is an archetype. For Osensei, Aiki was an archetype. You don't consciously think of Aiki as you're doing the movements, but the Aiki is a space that the movements come through. And center circle is just another one, a major one he worked. Okay, so that part of it is maybe vague, and I wish it were. It would seem to work a little better in the park, but that's just the nature of it sometimes. Okay, but let's go back. And we're here again. Cut, cut. Right side center circle, left side center circle. Center circle is a space. Boom. When I'm in that space, boom, I notice the base fills in better. Boom. Base fills in better. I'm out here. Somebody says, teacher says, you need more base. Okay. We're trying to figure base out. But there's a center circle. Boom. And there's a center circle. Boom. Okay. Center circle. It flows better for me. It flows better for me. It flows. And I'm doing this, I'm working hard at figuring it out, doing it. On the other end, center circle, boom. Center circle, boom. So we're working right, left, but we're also working center circle right, center circle left. Swing a couple more, we'll see how it goes. It's an in the moment feel. If you try to figure it out, that's natural. After a while, you realize trying to figure it out adds confusion. So, what did Osensei say? This, the circle is empty. It's a paradox. Because when you're in the feel experience, there's an emptiness to the thought process of just feel experience. And that's part of the center circle. Yeah, Bonnie, that's better. Cliff, that seems, there's some stuff happening for you. Okay, let's check in for a bit. Let's check in for a bit. So come on in, okay? Anybody with an observation on that? It may take you a little bit to get because, there's an area, first thing, somebody says something like center circle, I'm gonna try to figure it out. I'm gonna try to understand it, which is type part of it. But then somebody says, yeah, that's important. Glad you are focusing on it. Now, be in the feel experience of what the center circle does to the right side cut and the left side cut. Okay? So that may be confusing, but it's an important one, confusion. Okay, so let's see, Cliff, any observations on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the sort of previous to that session, I was thinking about what you said, what you said about the back foot, and I realized, and intellectually, and then I could feel it, that because the end of the Joe is describing a partial arc of a circle, but the back leg was also in touch with the other side of the circle. And so that the circle was like a rainbow, which we see as half a circle. But if you're in an airplane and you're high enough, you can see that it's actually a whole circle, which I've seen. It's just that when you're on the ground looking at a rainbow, half of it is covered by the ground. And then I kind of felt like I had hit something like the platonic realm of platonic solids as a kind of overlay on the mundane. And then this time, I didn't get back to that, but I got into a kind of groove.
Yeah, okay.
And then I got into a kind of grove. I had this sense that there was what you keep calling finer dimensions. Was that I was kind of watching the Joe travel through this space, and I realized that there are all these trees and it was like a forest, and it never occurred to me that a finer dimension would actually have trees in it, because trees seem so tied to reality, our dimension, whatever.
Well, trees are of root ground, they're in touch with the sunlight, they draw nutrients from the soil, their branches, they branch out. Okay, they come from a little seed. There's a lot in trees.
Yeah, so when you said I was in touch with something or whatever, I forget exactly what you said, that was where I was.
Okay.
I was like I was perceiving through the movement of the Joe, sort of visually, that it was part of this, the circle that I was in was part of this finer dimension.
Well, the center circle can be a travel device from here to finer dimensions. Okay. also be, you know, on a lesser level for us, it can be like a magic lamp, right? In other words, you know, here I am hacking away. I need to go quicker. Okay, I need more speed. Right? I'm hacking away. All of a sudden, I need more power. Boom! I need to be able to strike like light, strike like thunder. I'm kind of out of place. All of a sudden, I need to be able to fly like lightning. Okay. So, in a sense, yeah, the center circle can you know, I mean, you can look at it a certain way. There's no reason why just being more conscious of a center circle will help you. But if it's an archetype, if it's a pattern Osensei used, we should pay more attention to it. Okay? So anybody else like to share experience or have a question or yes? Yes.
Just to add on with the case of Gary reference that really helped with the letting the sword flow, but it also helped me focus or not focus on my breathing more, in that as I was breathing, it was as if the breath was lifting the sword and not my arms, and it felt more natural. And also like we do the grip one way normally, what we were just doing, for me, it feels like a body balancing and body centering. So also when I swap the grip, I notice a different feeling, but I also know the center is still the same. So it helps me do a more finer balance.
Yeah, you just kind of went where we're going to go next. We're doing a right side, left side. We're doing a right side center circle, left side center circle. If you tuned a little bit into the Friday night that Nado Sensei did, okay, he was kind of addressing it in slightly different movement patterns. But now, when you start to get the flavor, now I'm doing right, I'm doing left, but I'm mesmerized by learning the technique. So all of a sudden we use center circle right, center circle left. Okay? Now, for example, you know, I'm here and somebody says, move like a beam of light, I'm going to stumble. But if I kind of center circle, boom, boom. The center circle adds something. It's kind of an alchemical vessel. You become an alchemical vessel when you center circle. Initially, you know, there's very little gradations of change, but as you continue, you'll find they go finer or more original center circle, the finer, more original center. The movement itself evolves in that. Now, Bonnie's starting to pick up the fact that as she does that, all of a sudden her breathing kicks in. There's something in the middle of the right and the left. So that's where we're going to go next. We can reference it as, oh, it's a center. Okay? So what we're going to do, okay, I'm on camera, so I don't have to put myself back. Okay, for example, this is a right and a left with a center circle right, the center circle left. Okay, now, something going on in the middle. And for me, what's going on there is breath. Now I'm breathing. The breath is a little different for me. Now you might experience deeper, more rhythmic breathing. Fine, I go to breath. I'm a little quick there. Okay? You may start to pick up a column. It's a center talking, something between the center circle, right, left, left, right. Okay? This came up with Cliff. There's a tree. Now the tree doesn't uproot and move, but it has a side here and a side there. It's part of the forest. Boom, boom. So you may pick up an energy image. Okay, so I'd like you to go back to the center circle, right, center circle left, swing a couple of bit, and then just sort of pause, and we'll just have what's happening in the middle. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, let's just check in for a bit. So pause for a bit. We've been doing a right, left, a right center circle, left center circle, and something starts to show in the middle. So Bonnie was referencing breath and center. Anybody else? What might be popping up for you in the middle?
Well, I felt a little looser and wider.
Yeah, okay, now
You know, like once I got clicked in.
Keep going.
Well, there was, I felt at some point I was sort of channeling the samurai attitude, like, "Rawr," you know, kind of just really expansive. I felt more expansive, I guess that's the way. And I noticed the movement was getting larger
Yeah,
within the physical limitations of the space I'm in.
of course, yeah, you don't want to
I don't want to hit the chandelier, but
okay.
you know,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So, and it was with a sense of flow that
Yes.
that the movement got larger.
Now, what I'm going to say is that, you know, just like Bonnie kind of hit it over there with the breath in the center, now you're picking up on self. There's a movement. We can get lost in learning the movement, doing it better, being critiqued, da 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 da. And then there is self. Who are you there? So that's interesting. More expansive, larger. He's also, boom, maybe, and you know, we believe in past lives. Maybe he's hitting on a past life where he was a samurai. Okay, so in this life he's doing martial arts. Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else with an observation or question there?
Sensei,
Yes.
I noticed that with this last movement, as I felt more of the center circle and I was able to focus less on the breathing, less on the technique as they were just happening. And
Yeah.
as this was happening, I noticed my hips relaxing and with each step, my feet were exploring where the optimal placement would be based on where the blade was falling. So it
Yeah.
did feel like more of a flow state.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're talking about he or she. You're starting to get a character. He or she are starting to feel themselves in the flow state. So the emphasis shifts one from the technique to you. Now the center circle is just a nice vehicle to shift from the technique, and we use a balancing. It's the right and the left, and we do right center circle, left center circle, and then the focus shifts to something that's more interior, neither right nor left. Okay? That's the name of the game. Okay? Anybody else? Okay, now, let's just say Osensei's statement about the center being empty does have a circle. I mean, the circle being empty. The circle has a center. But then again, he's really talking about the emptiness. Well, see, I can be vacant, but when I'm empty, okay, one thing, for example, this is a track. Any motion is a track. Any motion is a circle. But circle, circle. What I just did is change tracks. This is a right side track, this is a left side track. And, I'm kind of in the form of it or trying to do the form of it better. Within the center circle, we're starting to touch something in the middle. Okay, so all I'm doing right there is working this track or this circle and this. And if I can go, that's a basic change. In music, you're playing and there's a bunch of chords and you're going from chord to chord. There are changes. So, okay, what are the changes here? Okay, you want to be able to hear them, okay, and just blend with them. By the time I'm thinking, what should I play in this chord? And there's a change to the next one. It's like, no, you just feel it. But boom, boom. So I'd like you to practice a little bit changing tracks. Changing tracks. Okay? We're going to do both the right and the left, but this is now a change. Change that track to that track. This circle to this circle. And as we experience this, what's in the middle, we can shift from track to track or circle to circle. Try a couple. Okay. Let's check in. Yeah, go this way. And so we're going track to track, circle to circle. Anybody? Question, observation there? Yes, David. David. For some reason, you're muted, I think, or I can't hear you. So, or just move.
Can't hear you, David.
Yeah.
Try swapping your microphone source, David.
Okay, I don't know what we can do here.
Maybe David could type his question in.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good.
Hi guys, this is Al. That may have been a mistake on my part that I thought David had something to say, but maybe he didn't, and I'm mistaken.
Okay, well, we can clear that up, and we about another 5 minutes.
He says go on without.
Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else with a observation or question? Track to track. You have to sort of know the movement, all right? Maybe go a little past that. Each side has a center circle, but then again, you start to pick up something in the middle. For me, a lot of it is breath, but that breath has a vibration to it, okay? Each of these movements, now there's about 4 tracks right there. Boom, boom. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Initially, you do crazy things like poke yourself in the stomach, but after a while. Okay. Anybody with a question or comment on that before we go on to the next room?
Sensei, just one maybe comment, something I'm visualizing with regards to track.
Yeah.
For me, that seems as if when we were doing the back and forth with the Kesagiri cut, the track to track almost seems like no matter what we're doing left and right, try to do it the same and balanced, and the feeling from the center would be that balance on however the hands end up. Is that?
Well, the balance is tied to the fluidity, because in some sense, I have a set balance here, but then I got to move, and I have to unset to move. And so right here, boom, 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 boom. And there's also a track called stillness. It goes into motion. That motion, boom, can be a bit more complex, or boom, 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 boom. Now that had about 1, 2, 3, 4 tracks to it. Okay, so just think about Irimi Nage. It is a technique. Now you go over here, the person moves a little bit. They create a different track for you. The little solids, you create a different track by shifting, and then you step here, and then you create a different track to finish. When Osensei said Aikido was non-resistance, yeah, there's a situation, okay, you create it, and you can't move on it, you create a different track to get a different configuration with it, okay? So the ability, in some sense, when you're there, of course, the center, the circle is not empty, it does have a center. But in the middle between the right and the left tracks, you standing there, empty, free. And for me, the feeling of that is tied to not so much breathing, but breath. And then breath has a kind of vibrational, like we go to sound, which we're not going to do right now, very easily because the breath and the vibration sound are very close. And then movements, boom, flow. Okay, there's 1 track, 2 track, 3 track, 4 track, 5 track, 6 track, 7, 8, actually 7, 8, 9. In fact, a real good motion like that, the more tracks you have, the quicker the motion. And if you kind of look at the tracks, you don't get it. So boom, 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 boom. All these are tracks. This is a circle. Now that's a track, that's a track, that's a track. So there's the way of training. It's a way of training especially during this period where we're dealing with the coronavirus. Okay, anyway, let's move into the next room. We'll go back. Okay, so we are back at our conference table. For some reason, I brought this. Okay. Let's see. Can we get David back? Maybe we can get some sound. David, you want to try it again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I got it reset correctly.
Good. Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, these things happen. High tech is a blessing, and it also is not a curse. It just is challenging sometimes. Okay. So, did you want to elaborate what was happening for you over there?
It was a momentary thing. I don't really, I got kind of confused by the audio. I think I forgot what I wanted to say.
But you can go back into the experience of what was going on. It's really funny how a lot of times when you're making a major breakthrough, the world goes nuts.
I think it was when we first started moving today,
Okay.
I became really preoccupied by the timing of the footwork in relationship to the swing.
Okay.
And for a while, I was tripping over my own feet. And then I just had a moment where instead of trying to copy or to get the sync right, I just didn't think about my feet at all for a few minutes. And something started to make physical sense, and it just, eased out. And one of the things that helped was I got really concerned about changing feet.
Yeah.
And I just allowed myself to go ahead and step forward and step forward and step back and step back. And that turned what had been 1-2 into 1 with an adjustment, 1. And now, instead of this being 1-2, it feels more like 1.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, a lot of times when you feel like you're tripping over your own feet, there's another level that wants to come through, and it's kind of pounding on your door. Okay. And so one of the tricks of the trade is you start to kind of open. Instead of getting caught up in trying to do it better, you don't quit. But, it's almost like, it's like the center circle trying to bump you, get your attention. So all of a sudden, everything is kind of cleaned up. Bruce Lee said it. He just said it when Chuck Norris and Joe Louis, they're both professional high-level karate champions. And they both studied with him. He said, I'm not going to teach you any technique. I'm just going to help you clean your mess up. And so, one of the ways that, he kind of saw things, boom, it's the intercepting fist. So, we spend a period of time training and trying to improve and everything. But after a while, it's like we want to catch maybe a bit of Osensei stuff. And when we start to catch the center circle, everything starts to kind of, in some sense, shift from me doing it better to, okay, center circle. Yeah, I'm going to try to stand better. I'm going to center circle for a minute. And so, yeah, the footwork starts to kind of ease into a kind of harmony, because the center circle, the center in its relations with the circle, and the circle in its relation to the center is harmony. That's why we do this crazy movement. And also the center to the circle center is like the in-breath to the out breath, and the out breath to the in breath, and the in breath to the out breath. There's a very similar quality. That's why when I start to do the center circle right, center circle left, what shows for me is not so much the breathing, but breath. It's a little different. So, and then those states, oftentimes, we kind of, it's fun to figure things out and to kind of practice that. And at some point, it's just kind of good to say, okay, now what's going on here? Well, another larger center or finer center circle is showing, and it's trying to get my attention to open again. Okay, so after a while, now Osensei has an interesting expression, which is something like, it's impossible to get worse. If you find yourself tripping over your own feet, there's something else going on. It's not you getting worse at all. And we get, oh my God. Okay. I remember one night, Stephen Curry had made like a 3-point shot in some ridiculous number of games. He was playing those Lakers. They win last night. Congratulations, LeBron. Okay. NBA championship. But he just went 0 for 10. Everybody laughed. The next night, he set a new record. He made 13 threes or something. Somebody may have tied it or even equaled that or went past it. But he had, in a snapshot of time, it was 0 for 10. And by the time he played another game, it was probably something like 13 for 25. Or 6 or something like that. So, there's an area where, the next level about to show. So, if we take what the Osensei says, it's impossible to get worse. Then, basically, there's something's trying to get my attention. Oh, finer level of center circle showing. Okay. No, that's very instructive. Anything else, David? Okay, let me. Yeah. So
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah, sure.
When I was training in Chicago, the Chicago Aikido in ASU, the men's changing room had somebody had taped a fortune cookie onto the door, and it read, all your hard work will soon pay off, which was just a great message to get every time you were walking away from the mat and going to change into your regular clothes. But I was just thinking when you were saying that thing that maybe when we have the new dojo space, we should have like a sign over the door that says it's impossible to get worse.
Yeah, that's true. And on the other hand, if you get caught up in worse, you get caught up in worse. You see, it depends on, if you think of everything as process, the motion is from wherever we are to more original or finer. And sometimes around things kind of shake, things seem disoriented. But if we're able to increasingly be easy with that. One of the things I put out to people, I think I got, a little bit of response, but, I was just thinking if people might be interested in a kind of a stress management class, which would be maybe a one-time thing, or if it's big, in other words, people like it, then it's something that we can, kind of build on. See, the thing about stress management in the Aikido is about balance, it's about harmony. And stress is something that has something to do with imbalance, okay? And the way it was explained to me is we create stress in our own system when we make things more important than they are. yeah, I mean, we're kind of facing a situation, you know, with coronavirus. We're facing the upcoming presidential election, which will be very key. Economic turbulence. All we need is another disaster or two, okay? And yeah, those are very real. And there is that area where here we are, it's a here and now presence. And we're actually much more capable of dealing with whatever is out there when instead of making certain things too important, we acknowledge them and we can cope or we can function better by not making certain things. Not making something too important doesn't mean that we don't realize it's very serious. So, you know, my thought was to, you know, just do a class which would be a little bit around process. Just basic sitting, guided imagery, breath, can help somebody cope, function in this very turbulent time. So I'm just kind of putting it out there. This is kind of a sample group, but does anybody have a question about a potential? You know, what would it be? It'd be like a, you know, we put it as a stress management class because the reality is that there's a lot of stress. Anybody with a question about that or comment about it? Because there was just something that came to me the other day.
I think it'd be awesome.
Okay. Yeah, well, you know,
And I also think it would,
go on.
I also think it would be a great idea. Just like a really good Aikido class could be relaxing.
Yeah.
What you just described also sounds relaxing, as long as there aren't too many requirements that would increase the stress. It would be, I think it would be good.
Well, if you tell somebody you got to meditate for 30 minutes, you're going to create a lot of stress in their system. There was something I read where it was a reporter talking about, he took a breathing class and he was really very, very stressed. And all that breathing was, you know, 5 second in breath, 5 second out breath. And, you know, it was a little like the center circle. What's this? But he noticed that if he followed just that basic breath pattern, a lot of the stress, the situation didn't change, but his reaction, which was stress to the situation, did change. And so he kind of wrote an article on how amazed he was that if he could just breathe in 5 seconds, breathe out 5 seconds, and just kept that up, his whole demeanor would change, his whole sense of perception, because what happened is he changed his sense of himself. So, you know, just something that basic is something that we can possibly highlight. Because the Aikido, this is a good time for Aikido. And a lot of people, you know, they think Aikido, you go to a dojo and you bow in and you stretch and you train with your friends. And that, of course, is not available to us now. And so, you know, until it is, the reality is a lot of people are just not going to train. And if they're not doing it, then they may have some good memories or they may know something about the philosophy, but, you know, the actual sense of, you know, I'm just thinking in terms of, believe it or not, marketing. Because, you know, we could somebody, if you have friends and, they don't do Aikido, they could do a stress management class and get more in touch with their breathing, more in touch with how do I go from a state of turmoil to a state of well-being. And so that's what the course would be. You oftentimes, what's interesting, if we shift what's here, then our perception of what else there, what's outside also shifts, which is maybe the first step in being able to change what's out there, because we're working here. So I put it out there. I mean, maybe the other question, this is kind of a mini poll, so to speak, but my thought, what's this? That, by the way, that's kind of a cute photo that Cliff put on his thing, okay? But, just to...
I finally created an account, so I get to put a picture.
Okay, all right. I wish, somebody's got to teach me how to do that on Facebook. Not Facebook. But,
it is, I believe, Buzz Aldrin.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. But what happens a little bit is, what we do is, I would think about, maybe doing something like an evening, like a Monday or a Tuesday, and we just do that. So, there's people that can't make the noon classes because of work, but, doing kind of a, just trying a class out, just seeing how it goes. There are practices in Aikido that are actually quite good. Okay, I remember when I first started, my first art was Shotokan, and the instructor was Japanese, so we would sit Bokuso, meditation, and we sit for a couple of seconds, and then we do the class, and then Bokuso, meditation, Nare, which was, we bow or something like that. It was very military. Okay, but I had an experience one time when he just actually didn't just say, okay, now we're going to bow. So the guy, just kind of, this place, what is this place, right? And then I started Aikido, and then Robert Frazier would oftentimes, along with Nado Sensei, they did workshops together. We would actually sit during class. So I really got into just meditation, it wasn't a lot, but I do about 15 minutes in the morning. And then maybe before I went to bed, I'd go another 15 minutes or so, And I took a course that Robert Frazier did called The Psychology of Far Eastern Religion. And he got up there the first day and he said, oh, we're going to read books and we're going to study, Far Eastern religion. But more important than that, we're going to sit for, I can't remember, it was a half hour or whatever it was. And we would sit. And, his contention at that time was, it was practice. Just like going to the dojo is practice. And so the other thing that I remember doing a lot was Robert Frazier would teach what he had another teacher in Japan, not just Osensei, but a man named Tempu Nakamura. And a lot of, for example, not so much now, but like years ago, a lot of the other stuff that was written about Aikido was from Koichi Tohei Sensei. And Tohei Sensei really studied Tempu. And Tempu was apparently, he was Japanese, but he was Western educated as well. He actually got a medical degree. And he taught something called Shinshin Toitsudo, which is the way of mind-body harmony. And one of the major things, and Robert Frazier said he was way ahead of his time, because most of the time we have the conscious mind and we have the subconscious. And a lot of our perception of the world comes from what's going on in the subconscious mind. And so one of the major things is when you think negative thoughts, you cut your energy. Most all spiritual traditions will tell you that. But what Kempo Sensei kind of stressed was, you have your conscious mind and you have the subconscious here. But right before you go to bed, and when you're asleep, the subconscious is actually up here, conscious is down there, and then when we wake up. So the thing was, before you go to bed, if you're going to meditate, meditate. And when you get up, meditate. And so your consciousness is, I mean, on a bad day, you can't meditate because your mind is too focused on really bad things, right? You kind of sit and settle. And so that's something I did, for a long time. And things have gotten so bad lately. I'm just saying the actual energies are really, there's a lot of anger out there. In fact, what happens is that their energy clouds of anger. And, and you can be pretty good, but all of a sudden, here in this cloud, you're going to get upset. You're going to get angry. And so a lot of times the meditation puts you at a different vibrational level. There are probably stress entities and anger entities or energies. And so, this one teacher I had would kind of do this kind of litany, right? Like, I take authority over this entity of anger, and I bind it and send it to the sun to be repolarized into energy that's complementary to me, my body, all other bodies, and the universe. Okay? And so she would say, that was the power of word, vibration, which Osensei referenced as Kototomi. But, sometimes, for example, if I'm going into a public place to buy groceries or something, and I take authority over whatever viruses there are, including the COVID-19 coronavirus, and I bind them all, I send them to the sun to be repolarized into energies that are complementary to my body and all the other bodies in the universe. So I kind of use that. But, there's an area where a lot of times, the meditation puts you at a vibrationally finer state. Okay? Now there's delusional, what they call magical thinking. Okay? And that's no substitute for social distancing and wearing a mask. Okay? And choosing where you go. If you go to some sort of a group gathering where everybody is not social distancing and wearing a mask, and that's magical thinking. You don't defy science, but the power of word, power of vibration, power of breath. Those are things that start to, as you get in touch with them, it's a finer level of us. And so, there are circumstances that are not good at all. And on the other hand, being kind of making them so important that we're just in this cloud of negativity doesn't help us or the world either. So that was my thought a little bit, is just to maybe try to do a little bit of we call a meditation, breath, process-oriented, kind of a stress management class. I mean, I don't like because stress management is already negative. Okay, but on the other hand, what happens is that, you know, it's all about marketing. Right. So, you know, I mean, somebody might say, yeah, maybe I should check that out. And then you can get them not in trying to deal with the stress, but trying to get into a deeper level of themselves. You see what I mean? So, how many people seem interested in something like that? Anybody? Okay, 1, 2. Okay, I don't see a couple of people, but that's okay. Yeah.
I'm sure David's interested. He's just not on stage.
Yeah. So you know, it would be something that's, you know, somebody, for example, there is a real relationship between your physiological well-being and your spiritual and mental well-being. I know that when I meditate, my blood sugar comes back better. It's much better. And then when I'm kind of in a state where, okay, I better work out so I can lower my blood sugar, whatever I do, oftentimes it doesn't do any good because I'm reacting to what I perceive to be a negative. And when, you know, I kind of just sort of sit, the blood sugar stays much more balanced, right? There's a video on YouTube, you know, a flotation tank, where, you know, it was Stephen Curry, where he goes in to a flotation tank. And then he goes in there, and initially when you do that, it's just you and the void, basically. And so all this negative stuff comes up, you know, about everybody that says he's too small, he'll never make it, da 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 da. Then he kind of lets out kind of a primal scream. It's going nuts. Then he blends with a flotation tank. It's a beautiful video. If you go onto YouTube and put Stephen Curry flotation, you'll come up with it. You know, because after a while, that which is kind of, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm just in this flotation tank, and all of a sudden, and then, wow. And so, you know, that's stress. But if you're gonna go into a flotation tank and go nuts, you know, you're just gonna relax and open. And you're kind of getting a type of meditation effect. I mean, I can't go to a flotation tank right now, but I can sit and process and go from, you know, and the technique I've been using lately with years, you get your news feed from the universe, not from your tablet or, and, you know, of course, we're going to stay informed, but, you know, just sort of going into the deeper, finer states. And, you know, some of those are, you know, it's like a journey, a meditation journey. So I was just thinking, maybe it's time to try it. And we'll see, put it out, see if anybody out there is interested. Okay, because we don't have the, you know, if you go to a dojo, sometimes you have a good class and they'll show you mood shifts. But we don't have that right now. A lot of people, they don't know what to do about Aikido unless, you know, I don't want to do this stuff. For me, it's the dojo. Yeah, okay, good. And there's no dojo to go to right now. There's a physical location, but we can't do anything there. And, you know, responsibly speaking, it's probably going to be almost a year before we can do that. I'm not talking about, I got to open up so I don't go totally broke. That's stupid. We got to find other ways of blending with it. And then Osensei says, use the one to strike the many, which means that, you know, that includes the coronavirus, which means you turn the negative, this particular situation, into a positive growth period. So yeah, it seems like there's some interest in there. So we'll move and kind of formatting it and see. Okay, anyway, I think for today, we will kind of say thank you. Got a couple of things to try to get done this afternoon. Okay,
Thank you, Sensei.
Take care.